Hello, I'm Captain Meme, and this is a Rayman M speedrun of the All Races category. As of July 2016, it's currently the world record, although I expect it to be broken because there are a lot of mistakes in this run. It was done at 3 o'clock in the morning at Warwick Awesome Speedruns and Demos, which I very strongly recommend you check out the other videos for, because they were all very good. Rayman M, or Rayman Arena as it's known in the United States, although there are some considerable differences between the two versions, is an on-foot racing game which is based on Rayman 2, The Great Escape, or also Rayman Revolution if you were playing it on PlayStation. The mechanics of this game are fairly simple. I'll explain them all during this race. I'll explain them just in order, so they won't necessarily match up with where they're appearing in the race, but I think all but one of them appears in this. This is a very good introductory level. So, the first thing is, obviously, you can run along the ground. It's fairly slow to do that, so most of the time you won't see me doing it. And you have the ability to jump and hover, like from any other Rayman game. The Teensies hover is one of them swinging the other one around their head, which is kind of amusing. You also won't see me doing very much of that because it's very slow, but what you can do is then jump and immediately hover to cancel your jump, so it will stop you going as far upwards. And that's actually very useful, you'll be seeing me doing that a lot. There's also something called hover stalling, which I'll explain later because it doesn't come in for a considerable amount of time. Next thing I'll explain is you can shoot. You might see me occasionally shooting out a purple bullet. It can't actually hurt the other players, but there are occasional switches on the walls which look like red spiders. If you hit them, it will change something about the level, and that can often be very, very useful. You'll see it once in this level. I'll shoot a button which makes a bouncer come out, which is another thing I need to explain, and that shortens the time considerably because it means I don't have to climb. Here it's coming up now. So the next thing is sliding, as you can see I'm doing now. If I slide, it's actually the fastest way to go around any level, which is why I'm taking the top route here, because that has the most sliding surfaces. There's also climbing, which you didn't really see me do in that level because it's a very slow way of ascending the climbable surfaces. There's a much faster way, which is to grab onto the climbable surface and then jump, and at the top of the jump you grab onto the climbable surface again and then jump again. So you essentially just jump up the wall. It's much faster than climbing up it. There's also swinging, which you'll see me do at the start of this level. If you fire a bullet at a purple lum, you will get pulled up to the purple lum until you're a certain distance away, and then you will swing off the purple lum, and you can sort of jump at any point, and you'll conserve the momentum that you had from whatever direction you were at on the lum. You'll also notice here that there are little yellow sparks coming out of the ground whenever I'm landing, and then I'm getting slight boost whenever I land, and that's called optimization. If you hit the triangle button on PS2 anyway, when you hit the ground, then you will get a very small speed boost, which actually makes it faster to jump, cancel your jump, and then hit the ground and boost than it does to walk, so you won't see me walking very often in this. In just a second you'll also see another form of optimization, which is the dust that comes out when I go over these boosters. The boosters make you go considerably faster, and the dust is actually me mashing triangle, which is making me go even faster than usual. And now is a good time to talk about hover stalling, which is a very big part of the run. You'll see when I'm hovering here, the animation is occasionally cancelling. So the Teensy will start swinging the other Teensy around the head, and then they'll just stop doing it. And then they'll start again and stop. And what that is me pressing X repeatedly, which is the jump button on PlayStation. And what that does is it means that you start hovering, and when you start hovering, you keep going forward for a small amount of time, but you hang in midair, so you stay at the same level, just for a second before you start going down. And what hover stalling does is it allows you to stay at roughly the same level while going forwards. And usually this isn't so useful because it's not all that fast, but what it does allow you to do is it allows you to, well, one, hang in the air during this part, so that you can make sure that you land at the right time for the platform to be out. But also in the later levels, during the glitches require you to be higher up than you'd normally be allowed to be. And that's where the hover stalling really comes in useful. Another mechanic I forgot to explain is that you can shoot these tentacle things that come out of the ground to stop them hitting you. If they hit you, then you'll be stunned. And stunning is something you've seen once or twice, I think, when I hit the electric fences in the first one. It stops you from jumping, and it makes you much slower, so you don't want to be stunned, obviously, wherever possible. If you are ever stunned, you'll want to mash triangle, because this helps you recover more quickly. That means that you'll be able to shoot and run and jump much faster than if you hadn't done so. So that's pretty much every single mechanic in the game explained, so now I'll just be commentating over the races as they're going. You didn't miss very much with me not commentating over First Ruin and Nebulous Tower because they're both very easy levels. They both have one specific route you need to go around every single time, and you saw me take it, except when I failed that jump at the very start of Nebulous Tower, which meant that I had to take a slightly slower route. So, this is Dark Sewer. A lot of this is about optimizing, so mashing triangle as quickly as possible because there's a lot of boosts around the level, specifically at the very start and at the very end. And you'll see me jumping up to the top of the slide over there. That's much faster than going any other way because you're sliding for longer. As I've said before, sliding is the fastest way to go around any level. One thing I didn't explain before are those boxes that you just saw me jump on. It had an 8 on it. That's the number of times you have to shoot it before it opens, and for the vast majority of times they're not worth hitting. The AIs will open them for you after a little while. It's not worth slowing yourself down to do so. You noticed in First Ruins there was one which I stopped to open because that route is very clearly faster, but in every other level I will only open them if the AIs already have put it down to 1 or 2 hits. Again, you'll see me jumping up the climbable surface here. You'll note I jumped to clear the top of the climbable surface, not to just grab onto the ledge, which is something you can do in this Rayman this Rayman game like you can do in most other Rayman games, but it's very slow to pull yourself up, and you don't get the optimization that you get when you jump up and hit the ground, because you can't hit triangle when you land. Now, coming up is a part which you might think I make a mistake on. If I jump up here, and then grab onto that lum, and then I'll jump and then hit that lum, and then swing onto the top section, and then I'll just drop off. And the reason I drop off is that even though the top route should be faster, it's not. Because when you go on those upward slopes, on the bottom it's fine, but on the top route, the upward slopes actually kill your momentum completely. So you can't carry your boost across the top route. It just doesn't work, which makes the top route far slower than the bottom route is. Even though there are more slides along the top route, if you get along further, overall it's slower to go that way. Also, at the end of the water sections, you'll notice that I almost always jump, and that was unfortunate. I tried to hit the button a bit too early and lock myself out of the route I was supposed to be going along. But as I was saying, if you go on the water, it's much faster than anything else in the game. And if you jump at the end of the water, it actually carries forward your water momentum for the duration of the jump. So it essentially extends the water out a bit further than it would otherwise, and that's very useful. You should be doing that at the end of almost every single water section, and you just saw me do it again there to jump into the finish line. And that's Dark Sewer over, which actually calls an end to the Beginners League. So now we'll be moving on to, I believe, Advanced League, which has a lot of the glitches in it. The first race will be glitchless, but then the second and third race we use a glitch to cut them down to a tiny fraction of their original length, and specifically the third level in this stage. The glitch that we use cuts out about 3 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, of time from the run, compared to if you were doing it normally. Also coming up, there's a small secret passage, which you might not know even if you have played this game a lot, which is if you shoot this flower coming up there, and then jump into the wall on the side, you actually get to a completely untextured secret route that you just saw, which is covered in boosters on the floor, invisible boosters, and has a bouncer at the very end of it. And that's much faster than going any other way. And I have no idea why it's untextured and why the bouncer looks so different. It might be that they cancelled that route in development, or something like that. But it's much faster than going any other route over there, and so you'll see me take it every single lap. Coming up, I also slightly abuse the pull forward on the lum. If you hit a lum from far away, you get pulled to a certain distance towards it. So that's quite a fast way of travelling along a level. If you grab a lump from a long way away, you'll get pulled towards it. And the biggest example of that was actually in 1000 Waterfalls, which is the third level in this stage, but we'll actually skip that because we found a glitch more recently which cuts out that part of the race. Now, there's not really much else to talk about on this level, so I'll just discuss the version differences. You might have noticed if you don't have annotations on that it says PC at the top right instead of PlayStation 2. That's not true. The event organizer made a mistake and put PC instead of PlayStation. And the reason we're using PlayStation is that on the PC, on the Xbox and on the GameCube versions, the hover stalling I was talking about, where you hit X and then you hit X again, and then you hit X again, and then you hit X again, and so on, to keep cancelling the animation in midair of the hover and carrying you forwards, you are limited to hover cancelling 4 times in one jump on the PC and on the GameCube and on the Xbox versions. Whereas on the PlayStation version, for some reason, you are not limited at all. So you can just keep hovering as much as you want, keep hover cancelling, and stay at roughly the same level. Now, there are major differences also in that the Xbox and GameCube versions have completely different races for the most part, and they're much easier races, but they can't do a lot of the glitches that we do in this, so they are overall slower. But the PC version is roughly the same, except that the PC version, your character actually moves faster in the races than they do on the PlayStation version, and we're not sure why that is. On the PlayStation version, in the training, when the AI isn't there, you actually move much faster than you do in the race modes when the AI is there, so we assume it has to have something to do with the AI. Now, this level coming up is Water Canyon, and this is the first one we're going to glitch out, and it's also probably the fastest one in the entire game. I do make a mistake on it, and the video has a small blip in it, so yeah, that's not just you when that happens. So initially I climb up here, and then I grab the lump behind the start line. I jump up in front of the start line, and I actually miss it on the first attempt, but I go over the start line hitbox. So what that means is that usually if you go backwards over the start line, it deducts a lap from you. But if you go backwards over the top of the start line hitbox, it does not deduct that lap off you. So when you come backwards, well, when you come forwards again through the start line, it counts it as having done a lap. And that means that you can do all 3 laps very quickly if you grab onto the lump between every single one, throw yourself upwards over the start line, and then grab onto the lump again. Coming up is 1000 Waterfalls, which is usually the longest level in the game, but we're going to cut it down to the 3rd shortest level in the game, using the same bug as we used on Water Canyon. If you run through this fence, there's no point jumping over it, and then grab onto the lump, and then fly off to the side of the level using hover stalling, then you should be able to grab onto that lump again, but I didn't manage to. You can get very quick laps, because the hitbox doesn't extend all the way to the corners, the top corners. It extends quite a long way up, and it extends quite a long way out. But if you go to the top right or the top left corner, then you can use the same bug we did on Water Canyon to trick the level into thinking we've done a lap. And that lets this race be over in about 30 seconds. And that's Advanced League over. And now we've got Forest Jump, which is another one we're going to glitch out. All 3 of the glitched levels in the middle are together. And then we've got 2 glitched levels right at the end, which are not for a little while yet. But this one we're going to use the same glitch, and this time we don't even have to grab onto a lump. We just have to go and jump onto an enemy, up onto a secret route at the top, and then fly backwards using the hover stalling. And because that route is fairly high up, and the game doesn't expect you to hover stall, you can get over the top of the finish line as per the same method as we used in all the other ones. And usually jumping over the top of that creature, and by the way, that little blip in the video is there, that's not just you. I'm sorry about those. But yeah, jumping on top of that creature can be a bit temperamental, you can just get shoved downwards, but this time it all went very well, and that was a very quick forest jump. And now we have 3 non-glitched levels coming up, the first of which is Zenith Harbor. And Zenith Harbor is probably my favourite level. There's no real reason for that, I just like it. But it also gives us a chance to demonstrate why we're using teensy characters. And all the characters in this game have the same stats, apart from their hitbox size. And the teensies have the smallest hitbox, and that lets you slip past obstacles. If you have a boost going, like this, then if you hit any obstacle it will stop your boost and cancel your momentum, and that includes slightly raised ground, which is right here. But you'll notice I slide past it because right in the corner of that there's a bit of ground that's on the same level, and only the teensies can do that because they're much smaller than the other characters. You'll also notice that I tried to cut that corner a bit close and I fell into the mud or the grass at the bottom. That wasn't intentional. That was quite a big mistake and that cost me quite a lot of time. We used to call that a bridge glitch. It's not really a glitch if it happens like that, but what it can do is if you keep pressing against the bridge and trying to get onto it, it will sort of make your character get stuck and start vibrating in and out of the bridge, and you'll get stuck there for quite a long time. And I really didn't want that to happen, so I just decided to drop down into the grass at that part, which cost me some time, but it probably saved me a bit more. Also, you just saw how hard it was to do that thing where I continue the boost using the teensies. It is a very small area, and if you hit into the wall on the side, you also lose your momentum. So it's a very small gap you have to pass between to keep that boost. And I don't think I managed it on either of these 2 laps, only on the first one. Also, you'll note that these platforms have different sides. There are sides that are good and sides that are bad, but they're usually in the same place when you arrive there, and that's usually a good side if you're doing it at the right speed. But because I lost some time on the first lap, I will end up getting there just as the bounce pads appear on the last lap, which is problematic because that's the worst side for it to be on. And the reason for that is that you get bounced up into the air, and that slows you down considerably. However, on the very left-hand side of those bouncers, even though I don't hit it here because I wasn't expecting the bouncers to be up, there is actually a sliding surface. It's just along the metal section, and it doesn't look sliding. It's very weird, but it is actually faster than hitting the bounce pads. So if you ever get it that way up, try and hit the metal section on the left, and you will go a lot faster than if you hit the bounce pads. You might also notice that it's saying new record almost every single lap. Well, every single lap I go faster than the one before. That's because it has to be on a new save for the run to be valid. And that's because you get put through a certain number of screens after you finish the race, depending on how many records you set. So in order to make it fair, you have to have no records set beforehand, so everyone doing this run will have the same number of screens pop up for them after every run. Now this is Treasure Ship. It has quite a few glitches which we'll show at the end, because they're not fast enough to be in the actual run, or they're not useful enough anyway. The first one is in this room. If you go to the right or to the left, and just jump onto the wall, you will very slowly float to the very top of the wall. And we thought we might be able to use that to do the same checkpoint height glitch as you've seen in those 3 other levels that we glitched. Water Canyon, 1000 Waterfalls, and Forest Jump. But the hitbox of the checkpoint is far too high to do that, so it's not useful. Another one is you can actually turn the level around, which I'll show you how to do at the end, and it's kind of complicated to explain, so I won't explain it here. And there's another one which is an out of bounds glitch, which I might as well explain now because it is used a tiny bit later in the run. And if you get out of bounds, the game will try and push you back in bounds again. Usually you can't get out of bounds because the walls are there. But if the game tries to push you back in bounds, it pushes you slightly upwards and slightly backwards at the same time. And what that does is if you're pressing against out of bounds constantly, you can go shooting upwards. And here there's an AI, which I should talk about, because you haven't really seen them for the rest of the game. But on this level specifically, the AIs tend to get stuck, and that makes them very easy to lap. You noticed I lapped them on lap 2, which shouldn't be possible. But they can be very annoying if they hit buttons, and you saw them be very annoying there where they hit the button and stopped me from jumping up onto the platform I wanted to get onto, so I had to wait for it to come back down again. Also, these slums I'm jumping on now, they're actually slightly slower than going on the slides on the right. I should have gone on the slides on the right. I'm not sure why I didn't. I guess it's something to do with me recording this at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I was making quite a few mistakes. But that's pretty much the... Well, that's one of the few mistakes I made in this level. Most of the rest of it is fine. Also, you might notice when I hit the bounce pads here, I land directly on the same level as the next bounce pad. And that's not because the jump is that high, it's because I'm using hover cancelling, where at the top of my jump, or at the appropriate height of my jump in this case, not quite at the top, I will hover just to cancel the upwards momentum. So you don't get any extra airtime than you need, you'll just immediately stop on that bounce pad. And that's the end of Treasure Ship. And now there's only 3 levels left, which are the 3 in the very last league. We don't do the bonus league because for all races you only have to do all the race modes, and the bonus leagues are training, 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 on, and survival, none of which are races. And now this is Pipe Maze, and I will go backwards at the start here just to grab that boost because it's slightly faster than going forwards. I also just failed that jump there, so I need to use the jump hover optimize combo that I've talked about, slightly faster than walking, just to try and catch up a little bit. That lost me a fair bit of time because there was boost up there that I should have hit. Also, I hit a button here just to bring the boosters a little bit closer. That's a button that the AI never hit, so those boosters will be there forever now, which is very useful. And here's another part. You'll notice I just ran past a barrel which was supposed to squash me. That's because I am the Teensies and I have a very small hitbox. And some other characters can do that. That's not quite as tight as the thing in Zenith Harbor was, but the Teensies are the best characters for doing it just because you don't have to focus on doing it too much. They do it kind of automatically, and you can run behind the barrels. You don't need to jump over them, which saves quite a lot of time. You'll notice also I just got thrown forward. I'm not sure what that glitch was. I guess the game thought I was out of bounds and then just glitched me forwards. I was very confused about that at the time, as was a couple of other people who'd played it around me. But yeah, that was that. I guess one other thing to talk about on this level is why I'm not taking the top routes at the end. You'll note I grab the lum here, and I grab the second lum, and then there's a route above which I just drop down and don't bother with. And I go along this route, which seems fairly slow, but it's actually quite fast compared to the top route, because the top route requires a lot of zigzagging. There are 2 different ways you can go. One of them has boosts along it, and one of them has a sliding surface. And I've said before, sliding surfaces are the fastest way to travel, so you'd think that would be the fastest way, but in this level it's actually so sharp, the turns you need to do at the top, that it costs you a lot of time if you go up there, and that's not faster than going the bottom route. And the boosters are kind of the same. It's so sharp that you really can't use them to their full extent, and they don't make you go fast enough. And now we're coming to the end of Pipe Maze. You'll see I'm just doing the last section here. That shouldn't take too long. Then we'll be going on to Lava Factory, which is a glitched level, finally. But this is a glitched level which takes a bit longer than the other glitched levels because you have to fly backwards quite a long way. There's a very steep slope, well, not a slope, a very steep cliff that you have to jump up in Lava Factory, and we abuse that by doing a hover stall backwards, back to the start line from it, which lets you go above where the level would usually let you, and so the start line hitbox doesn't extend up that far and we can use the normal glitch. Now this level uses a slightly different version of hover stalling than you've seen before, which is called extended hover stalling. It's when you mash both X and R1, which are both jump buttons. Usually you would just mash X or just mash R1, and the problem with that is that they do not allow you to input the same input that rapidly, so you can't stay as high up as you can if you mash 2 different inputs that do the same thing. And here it's very important that we mash it as fast as possible because we have to stay on the same level. You notice that we're high enough up on this when we're doing it that the back of the screen actually blacks out. There you go, because it doesn't like rendering that far away, and also we're going above these towers, so they don't expect you to get that high. You can actually see inside them. So this is actually a very good Lava Factory. Usually I would fail it at least once, and that's problematic because each attempt takes about 20 seconds. It only takes 3 attempts before your lap is actually slower than if you'd just done it the normal way. But we got all of them first time on this attempt, and that's what makes this run fairly good. That saves a lot of time. And now we're coming up on the Electric Final, which is the very last race in this category. And it's quite a long race. Maybe not quite as long as some of the others, but there is a method that can save time, which involves a glitch, which I'll try and do on the first lap, but it doesn't really work. I'd only discovered it the day before, and it's quite a hard glitch to pull off properly. And because I don't do it very well in this run, it ends up costing about 20 seconds, which is quite big. And you'll notice that I'm actually behind the AI in the second lap. And this glitch I try to perform uses the out of bounds glitch, which I talked about before, where you press against the out of bounds, and the game tries to force you back in bounds again, but pushes you slightly upwards, and then you push against the out of bounds against it, so you end up shooting upwards. And there's actually a spot in this wall where you can shoot upwards much faster than you do here, or than I do here. And I end up getting stuck here, so it really doesn't work very well. But you want to propel yourself up to a level where that beam on the wall behind me has just disappeared, so just there. And usually you'd be able to do that much faster. But it did not work out for me in this run. And because I'd only discovered this glitch the day before, I wasn't feeling very confident with it, so I decided to avoid using it for the next 2 laps. So I'm now using extended hover stalling to travel back to the start line. I need to stay over the roof in this section. You can fall through the roof, as in it's not solid from this side, it is solid from the other side. But if you fall through the roof, then you will not be able to perform the glitch because you won't be high enough up. And you note, I fell through the roof behind the start line, you have to do that. And you'll notice I'm in second because I did a very, very slow lap there. And it should be noted that I do need to beat the AI to win the race and to win the category. Because if you don't win the race, it does not count as having finished the category, you have to star every level. I drop off the top section at this part. I actually grab onto the top section, I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to just drop off straight, which lost me some time. But I drop off the top section because there are boosters down here and there are not at the end of the top section. So you want to hit all the boosters here and then jump up here very quickly. I do actually miss the part I was supposed to be jumping onto there, which again cost me some time, but not too much time. You notice I also glitched through a barrel there, sometimes that's possible. It's a bit weird, the barrel hitboxes. They're hard to predict, so I will not try and do that very much. But when it happens, it's kind of nice. So we're coming up on the last lap of Electric Final, and there's not really much else to talk about that I haven't talked about already, so I will probably just talk about random other stuff for the moment. As you can tell by the mistakes I've made in this video, it's not a very heavily contested category. I have done better runs than this before, but I haven't actually recorded any of them, so this is the first recorded run I've made, and it is, as such, the world record. We'd always be interested in more people running it. It is quite a fun game to speedrun, so if you want to run it, go and check out the speedrun site, speedrun.com, and look at the Rayman M/Arena page. And there are several different categories. There's one for the Xbox and GameCube, because they're a different version to this, and there's one for PS2/PC, which is this one. You might want to run it on PC. On PC, the Lava Factory glitch and the Electric Final glitch are not possible, but your character does move slightly faster, so it might be possible to get a faster time on the PC than it is to get it on the PS2. That's something we need to test, but I don't have the PC version, so I can't test that. And that's time. That is the end of the run. Thank you very much for watching, and coming up is a glitch showcase of Treasure Ship, which we did just at the end of this section because some people asked us to do it. And I will probably hand over to myself for that part. So thanks for watching, and I hope this has inspired you to try the run yourself, and maybe the game.
Okay, we've done a couple. Yeah. So the first glitch is that you just run up the wall to the side and very slowly sort of weave your way up. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, go for it, okay.
Alright, so if you do this, you very, very slowly go to the top of the level. Is that too close? Not close enough? Okay. We thought we might be able to use this to do the same glitch as before, where you go backwards over the start line, over the checkpoint height, but they actually coded the hitbox well in this and you can't go over it, so it's not actually very useful. So the other one, we're going to turn the level around and make all of the boosters go backwards. So we use the hover cancelling here to go much higher than we're supposed to, and it forgets to turn the camera around, so we can now see the level in reverse. You can see the black box at the back where it doesn't expect you to be able to see. Right, hang on. But yeah, so these boosters don't go forwards anymore. If you go on them, you'll just get propelled backwards into the stairs. And the same with the water, it will go backwards. But if you go past a certain point, you get turned around again, and the camera is facing forwards. So I need to go and correct this and that's compare our views. Right. Alright, yeah. So I'm seeing the level in reverse. So yeah, I can only climb up this if I hold backwards, which is really weird because I'm supposed to be heading forwards when I do this, and I can't actually climb to the top of the ladder. It's very strange. There's one other glitch I can do on this level. I need to turn my camera around again. So I'll go over here. Yeah. This is why you made such an amazing commentator. Alright. To infinity and beyond. Although, it should go higher than this. Yeah, but now I am stuck, so I cannot complete the level anymore. Triangle. Alright, that's everything. So, yep.